So, the new guy on Wheeler Dealers, which is a big deal.
It's a big deal, yeah.
The British people probably know you from the Love of Cars and some of the TV shows you've done, but the rest of the world, you're basically a mystery. So tell us, who are you, where are you from, and how the hell did you end up here?
Yeah, it's a good question. So in England I host a lot of other shows. I did The Love of Cars for 3 years, Building Cars Live with James May on BBC, and plus outside of the car world I do loads of other TV stuff as well. I host a craft show for Channel 4, I do a lot of travel shows for BBC. So I've been really lucky because I get to do lots of different stuff on telly. For Love of Cars has quite a good global reach. It's really popular in Australia, weirdly. So Australians, car fans generally know who I am. But you're right. And bear in mind, America is probably Wheeler Dealer's biggest market. They absolutely have never heard of me. Now, I'm good friends with Mike and Ed. I've been working with both of them on live shows like this, charity shows for probably 5 or 6 years. We do lots of other stuff together. So when Ed made the decision to leave, he actually drove down to my workshop and told me, and we spent a few hours together. And then I got a phone call from Discovery and a phone call from Mike, and then I was given a choice. Do you fancy it? And really the show either stops or it goes on, and for me the show had to continue. In this kind of crazy car world that we live in, especially in the UK, and it was important that they had a UK host. I was already an established UK car host. I was already an established friend of Mike's, and I was already an established fan of the show. It felt like I was probably the obvious choice. The truth is I was probably the 10th choice, and they interviewed 9 people who said no. Well, that's what Mike keeps telling me anyway. But I'm a car guy. I built my first car when I was 16 years old, before I got my driving license. When I was a 12, 13-year-old, I used to build go-karts using lawnmowers.
Okay.
And throughout my life I've always been building cars, and I've been building cars professionally now for probably 20 years.
You've got your own car company.
Yeah, I've done a lot of... I have a car company at the moment, and I've done a lot of kind of bespoke builds. I do a lot of one-offs. I had a reputation for building sort of high-end track cars, and yeah, over the years I've built some really cool stuff, which is great because most car people in our world tend to specialise. So they're really good at engines, or they're really good at bodywork, or they're really good at one make. So you get a Jaguar expert or a Triumph expert. But I've been really lucky because I've been really general. So I haven't pigeonhole myself into one make or one part of the car world, which I think also helps for Wheeler Dealers, because it means that I've got a broad spectrum of car knowledge, a broad spectrum of specialist skills, and that's what we're trying to give. We're trying to give people an insight into every part of the car, not just one bit.
Now, the show was under a lot of scrutiny over the last year or so when Ed decided to leave. Was that difficult for you to deal with? I mean, it was more difficult for Mike, obviously, because he got the brunt of the...
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that Mike took the real rough end of the stick, and I think unfairly so. People... I'm a big fan of human behaviour, and I look at Ed's departure in the same way you look at grief. People go through those 7 stages of grief. They can't believe it, it's outrageous, then they come down, and ultimately the stages 5, 6, 7 are the upturn. And it has played out exactly like the 7 stages of grief. In fact, when you do this article and put out the 7 stages of grief, because that is exactly what people have done, and quite rightly so, because I can only look at it in a positive way, that people really, really love Wheeler Dealers. They've grown up with it in the same way I have. It's been a mainstay fixture on our TV screens for so long. Of course, people should be upset that there's a change, but it's surely more upsetting if it ended.
Right.
Then the grief phase would be different. It would be, this is terminal, this is over, I now have to move on with my life and try and watch something else. But ultimately, the biggest problem, I think, is that the public have filled the gap with whatever's in their own head. And Discovery have said nothing, quite rightly. Mike's been the sort of punch bag for a lot of people. I've had a little bit of abuse as well.
Yeah, but I mean, even Ed put out some videos saying, "Oh, this is what happened."
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? And then people conjure in their own minds.
They're still going like, no, they send them off.
Yeah, they're still. I mean, even though it was Ed's decision, Ed chose to leave. Ed quite clearly said the reasons why. Yeah, even though all of that was done, people can't see past that. But I can only be flattered. The show, Wheeler Dealers, can only be flattered that people really give a monkeys about it. And all Mike and I have done is before I joined the show, we said this is the show we want to make. We want it to have real, true Wheeler Dealer DNA. We want to make a proper car show. We want to kind of go back to Wheeler Dealers of old, lots of workshop content, lots of technical information, and Mike and I are a slightly different dynamic. I believe we've knocked it out of the park. We've produced a really, really lovely car show. And bear in mind, this is car fans. We're just car fans. And for us, it isn't about the change of hosts. It's all about the cars. Mike and I aren't the superstars. We're not. It's the cars are the stars, and the fact is we just are the privileged pair that get to talk about the car. So yeah, it's been disappointing, because I'm a real believer in this car community. I love being at shows like this because it's driven by passion, and when people that are passionate about something that I'm passionate about can turn because they're not happy, and then they say some really hurtful things. Mike's had death threats. He's had people wish his family to have cancer. And now I know Mike well, and his brother died of cancer. So to have strangers sitting behind a computer screen saying, "I wish you had cancer," over a car show is really disappointing. It ruins my faith in humans. But ultimately, Mike's been a consummate professional, and we both rolled our sleeves up, ignored the abuse, and produced a show. And the ratings speak for themselves. It's the highest rated Wheeler Dealers ever. There, case closed.
So let's talk about making a car show in America as opposed to in the UK. You worked in the UK before, and then all of a sudden now you're restoring cars in the US. And of course, because that was not very long, because that's a quintessential European car. And you're in the US, and all of a sudden you're struggling with parts and all that.
Yeah, it's interesting because if the UK, if I bought the same car that spent 30 years in the UK or 30 years in America, I'm absolutely going to start off with a different car. The American car's going to have less rust in it. It's a fact. The climate is different in the US. If you're dealing with a European car, so you mentioned the Cosworth and the Premier, parts are tricky for that car in the US. But of course, in the day and age we live in, shipping parts from Europe to America is actually quite straightforward. The internet allows access really quickly. So the truth is that it's actually not that difficult, but you start off with a better starting point. The shell, the structure of the car is better because of the climate. In terms of practical sense of filming, I've filmed in the UK for a few years now, and you get more filming in America because there's better weather, there's bigger crews, they do it differently in the UK. I mean, I made For the Love of Cars with effectively 4 people, and we do it with 24 people. Whether that's a good or bad thing is down to you, but we get more show time, more longer days, more daylight, better climate, which means better cars. So actually, there is loads and loads of positives for filming in the US. Plus, Wheeler Dealers has always been a Discovery-owned show. It's always been owned by the Americans, although it's got a very English core. And it started off in the UK. It's always been an American show, and ultimately it's grown to such a huge global success that of course its owners, Discovery, want to now make it a global show, and it's fantastic, and I celebrate that this tiny little car show that grew 13, 14 years ago is now a global phenomenon, and it's being made in Hollywood. And it's really easy to become a kind of glitzy, glamorous Hollywood show, but you've probably seen the premiere. It's not. It's still Wheeler Dealers. It's still a British show.
What about you? I mean, was it strange for you to spend such a prolonged time in the US?
It's been very difficult. Yeah, I'm a British bloke. I have friends and family here. I have a business here, and making that decision to move. Effectively, I now live in America, so making that decision to move countries and move my family was very, very difficult. And we had, before saying yes, before signing the contract, we had many late night chats, many difficult conversations, but I've always been a positive person. I've always been a person that says yes to stuff. I've always been a person that kind of says, do you know what, life's funny, right? We only get one go, and you either live your life in a positive way, taking risks, saying yes, working it out later, or you say no to stuff. And actually, when you boil it down, it was always going to be yes.
As far as the cars go, you started out with a Porsche.
Yeah, great first car.
Seen some of the other ones on the show. You warn Mike not to bring you any basket case. Did you listen?
Well, I don't mind the odd basket case. Remember, if you, for the love of cars, and it's funny because Walter is here with his Mark 1 Golf, and when I filmed with Walter in Blackpool, we had 53 days. Fact, how weird's that? There he is. Walter, put your face in here, Walter. This is Walter, who with his Mark 1 Golf, and Walter, we had.
Can you give me a minute?
Yes, no, go for
I'll
it.
be back.
From the day I filmed and met him, we had 53 days to get a car ready for the day of the auction, and we put in Walter's Golf. It was over 40 panels. 40 panels, and that was. Then you have to then build the car. So that was before paint, before prep, before wiring, glazing, trim. So yeah, it was a difficult task. Do you know what? I can't even remember the question. Walter's phoned me.
If he's
Oh, basket cases, yeah. Yeah, it's very early and I'm jet lagged. So Mike, the answer to the question is I don't mind a basket case if the motivation's there, and you kind of get to that point as a car builder saying at what point does a car tip over being unviable, and if you look at it from a commercial sense, sometimes cars are unviable, but if you look at it from a storytelling, from a television sense, I don't think there's ever a car that would be unviable, because I want people at home to learn at what point a car tips over the edge, and the only way we can truly learn that is to show them and tell them. So if Mike brings me an absolute basket case that we're going to lose loads of money on, it doesn't matter, because we're just teaching.
So,
by the way, Mike, don't bring me any basket cases.
series, the filming is wrapped up, right?
So we film 8 cars at a time.
Yeah.
So a series, if you like, is 9 shows, 8 cars, and then a best of show. We then take a small break and we film 8 cars, and that's how it goes. So we've done the first 8 and the best of, and it's playing out in America. I think we're on about week 5. It goes out in England on the 1st of January, New Year's Day, and we've already started filming the back 8. So we're already at least 2 or 3, but we simultaneously build 8 cars at the same time. Oh no, Walter, I was only saying hello.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. I'll come and see you after. Good. I told you the guy was crazy.
So the next 8 are already lined up for you?
Yeah, we already have the cars. I've already started them. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to tell you what they are, but I will tell you. But I will tell you what we're working on. So we are. I know that Mike has already handed me a. So obviously the show, Mike chooses a car, and genuinely I don't know what it is. Then he kind of brings it into the workshop and goes, ta-da!
Yeah, is that actually the way it goes?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if there's a car that they're kind of 50-50 on, I often get asked my opinion, but I have no say in whatever car it is. I have no say.
Okay.
But what I do is I push. You know, and I listen to the fans. The fans don't want all American cars. They've said that quite clearly after last season. So I absolutely push. So I might know what the car model is, but I definitely won't know what the actual physical car is. And we run through lists of cars. What do we want? What do we want? And I run through it as well and go, nope. Yes. So I've already been handed a Mini, a BMW one.
Okay.
I'm not sure I'm allowed to say that, but we are doing one. What else? An Opel GT. Oh, blimey, my head is. I'm so tired. No, it's gone. But it's not just. We want cars from all over the world. So we're going to have a lot of European cars in there. There will be some American cars, of course, because we should be doing American
But if
cars.
you look at this show, there's a lot of American cars here as well.
There's a huge American presence here. In fact, Hall 5 is pretty much filled with American cars, and it's funny because the first American car I did on this first series of Wheeler Dealers was the Mach 1 Fastback, which was bought by a Brit and is currently on the water now being shipped to England. So yeah, it does go both ways.
Alright then, that's more than enough. Thank you very much for your time.
Top man. Thank you.
Have a great show.
You too.